Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair. This week marks the release of Star Wars Episode 9 Rise of Skywalker, and while I haven't seen it yet, though it looks good, I will firmly say that I enjoyed The Last Jedi. That's just my opinion. I'm not going to get all indignant defending a Star Wars movie, and if you don't like it, that's fine, as long as you respect that I do like it. However, Return of the Jedi is the best Star Wars movie ever, and if you don't agree, you're not just wrong, you're stupid. But that's neither here nor there. You don't have time to stand here burbling about Return of the Jedi. While I could look at the movie on how to fix it, apart from the fact that I don't think it's that bad, there's a certain limitation that movies have, and I get the feeling that if we had had more insight into the characters' heads, most of the problems with the movie could have been solved. After all, if I can come up with justifications for Canto Bight or insight into why Holdo didn't tell Poe about the plan within my own head by using the context clues left in the movie, then surely the official novelization explains everything. Now, I do firmly believe that following the SF debris method, you don't get credit for stuff you don't put in the movie because you didn't put it in the movie. But what's unique about this one is that it's not based on an earlier draft, like most novelizations are, which makes for a far different read. No, much like the Remembrance of the Daleks novelization that we looked at this past March, it only expands on what we saw in the theatrical film. So, will the novelization clear up all the issues people had with the film's narrative? Or is this special edition like all the others? Let's find out. This is The Last Jedi. The cover is one of the movie posters, and frankly isn't all that great for a book cover. It's got the giant half-faces of Luke Skywalker and Kylo Ren, with Rey in the foreground holding her lightsaber aloft and saying, "I have the power," which is awesome as a movie poster, but, look at the novelization of Episode 3. Okay, to be fair, this is the junior novelization, but isn't that dynamic? This is fine, and the poster is cool, but given how the book is the expanded edition, I think we should see all the other characters that were present on the other posters. Hell, at least give us Leia. I will say, despite having the two most intense actors in the movie staring at me, I'm not nearly as uncomfortable as I was during Castor Volva. Anyway, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. The book opens up on Tatooine, and no, I didn't accidentally pick up the wrong book, because in this expanded edition, we start during a dream sequence we didn't see in the movie, where Luke imagines a life where he never got thrust down the path of becoming a Jedi or a leader in the Rebel Alliance, and actually got to Tashi Station to pick up those power converters. In this life, old Ben Kenobi vanished, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru lived far longer, 3PO and R2 were seized by the Empire, Luke is married to a childhood friend, Cammy, and the Empire thrashed the Alliance after executing Leia Organa. In this life, Luke's only regret is never having children, but unfortunately it's only a dream, or rather, a warning. Similarly to Luke in the Vision, Luke is currently closed off from the Force, while the dark side rages on with the First Order. Picking up where The Force Awakens ended, and I'm just going to assume that if you're watching this, you've seen that movie, so I don't need to go into backstory, the Resistance is currently fleeing their base as the First Order approaches and tries to lay waste to their fleet. We get some scenes with Rose Tico and her sister Paige to set up Rose's arc, get some inner monologue from Poe, and we see the process of the evacuation. We also learn that Hux has been experimenting with tracking ships through hyperspace, and promises Snoke that he'll use it to stop the Resistance from escaping. Additionally, we get a lot of jumping around through the heads of periphery characters that I don't think ever really get focus in the film, that you forget have names and backstories that we're not really privy to outside of side media, like Connix. Notable because, of course, she's played by Billie Lourd, Carrie Fisher's daughter. And it does the same for the First Order, basically telling us that everyone on their side, Snoke included, knows that Hux has a flair for the dramatic that distracts from actually getting stuff done. I know Hux is a dedicated space Nazi and all, but he'd fit right in fighting the Justice League alongside the likes of Lex Luthor and Gorilla Grodd if he's ever looking to get away from the First Order. After Poe pulls a risky maneuver to destroy a dreadnought, which works at the cost of many lives, including Paige Tico's, Leia demotes him for disobeying orders. Finn wakes up from the coma he was in at the end of the last movie, and rushes around trying to find Rey, learning from Poe that Rey left in the Falcon to find Luke on Ahch-To. The Resistance tries to flee into hyperspace, but Hux tracks them, and they're left basically screwed, with not nearly enough fuel to attempt another jump, and even if they did, Hux would find them anyway, so they fly away as fast as they can go with a fleet of battlecruisers on their tail. While chasing them, Kylo Ren takes his fleet in, and while Kylo hesitates before firing on the bridge of the head Resistance ship, his wingmen do not, and Admiral Akbar is killed, while Leia's body is sent hurtling into space, and she uses the Force to pull herself to safety, which a lot of people found to be a plot hole, but it makes perfect sense, because she's Luke's sister. If Luke can use the Force, so can she. It's how she knew where to find Luke at the end of Empire, everyone's favorite movie. No one was complaining then. Unfortunately, this pretty much spends her, and she falls into a coma, with command being handed to Admiral Holdo, who does not like Poe in the slightest. The feeling is mutual. Poe disagrees with the tactic of running and wants to mount an offensive, but since Holdo's in charge, she calls the shots. Finn is nervous about Rey returning into danger and intends to steal an escape pod to ensure that Rey is safe, being stopped by Rose, who was tasked with tasing any deserters, and she tases Finn. Finn comes up with an idea to disable their hyperspace tracking, but they need to get onto the flagship to do it, and after having a confab with Maz Kanata, they learn of a codebreaker at a casino on Canto Bight who can help them, and Poe, Finn, and Rose conspire to steal a shuttle and find the codebreaker, take Finn to the flagship, disable the tracker, and let the rebel fleet escape into hyperspace untracked. Poe stays behind to run interference and try to mutiny against Holdo, while Rose, Finn, and BB-8 head off to Canto Bight to find their codebreaker. Meanwhile, on Ahch-To, Rey finds Luke, who wants nothing to do with her. Even nearly tosses the old Skywalker family lightsaber off a cliff, but to be fair, he does have pretty bad memories associated with that lightsaber. Day he got it, Ben Kenobi died. First time he used it after leaving Dagobah, he got his hand chopped off by Vader. Probably gives him phantom limb pain. Rey tells him that the galaxy needs Luke Skywalker and that she needs to be trained, and despite his initial refusal, believing that the Jedi should end because the cosmic balance basically assures that evil will always exist to be fought, Luke agrees to start training her, although he does it in his own reluctant, grumpy way. Meanwhile, on the flagship, Kylo Ren has a mental connection with Rey, and they start to get closer to each other as they learn each other's true intentions, as all the chess pieces fall into place on the cosmic board. After running into some trouble on Canto Bight and learning of their vastly different sensibilities as they free a bunch of space horses from a stable manned by children, Finn and Rose end up in jail with no codebreaker. But they get 3 hots and a cot, so it ain't all bad. In the cell, before being sprung by BB-8, they meet DJ, who claims to be a codebreaker willing to help if they grease his palm a bit. The group escapes and steals a shuttle heading back to the Resistance fleet. The Resistance fleet hasn't gotten very far, but Poe has made his dissatisfaction known and mutinies to buy Finn and Rose more time, believing Holdo's plan to evacuate into smaller vessels and abandon their bigger ships to be cowardly. On Ahch-To, Kylo Ren tells Rey through their mind link about the night that he destroyed the Jedi Academy that Luke set up, which he did because he woke up to find his uncle standing over his bed with a lightsaber. So, sort of understandable?
Cool motive, still murder.
Rey confronts Luke, who reopened himself to the Force and was just about to tell Rey to gas up the Falcon because he's heading home, and tells her that what happened was that he sensed evil, went to destroy it, and hesitated, because he knew that Ben was being manipulated by Snoke. Luke exiled himself because he failed. He let his nephew get corrupted. The Jedi have to end because they keep letting Sith Lords rise. Sidious gained power thanks to the Jedi. A Jedi trained not only Dooku, but Darth Vader as well, and caused the downfall of the Galactic Republic. Rey leaves to try one last-ditch effort to bring Kylo Ren back into the light, and Luke goes to the tree that holds the sacred Jedi texts to destroy them, speaking with the ghost of Yoda, who calls down a lightning bolt to destroy the texts himself, which I didn't know that Force Ghosts could do, but now it totally makes sense why Yoda and Obi-Wan wanted to be them. And they discuss the merits of failure as a teacher, and Luke's follies, along with his wisdom, is what will help Rey be better. Kylo Ren wants to ignore the past and destroy it. But Luke and Yoda figure out that what we need to be better is to remember the past, and everything we learned from it. It's my personal philosophy. While I wish I could have a time machine to undo every stupid thing I've ever done, and trust me, I've done a lot of stupid things I want to undo, every event I've lived through led me to this moment, and those mistakes taught me to be better. Back at the Resistance fleet, Leia wakes up when Luke reconnects to the Force, shoots Poe and takes back command, and when he wakes up, tells Poe that their real plan, the one that Holdo didn't tell him about, was to use the main ship as a decoy, while the rest of the fleet retreats to an old rebellion base in the system. Finn, Rose, BB-8, and DJ go through Snoke's flagship, intending to break their tracker, but unfortunately, DJ works for the highest bidder, and the First Order's sniped at the last second.
Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal!
Rey confronts Kylo on Snoke's ship, and for a minute it seems like she got through, with Kylo Ren killing Snoke after he orders Kylo to kill Rey, and Rey and Kylo teaming up to take down his guards, but he turns at the end, wishing to take Snoke's power and asking Rey to join him. Together they'll rule the galaxy! In addition to telling Rey that her parents were just scrap merchants who sold her for cash, but Rey refuses to join him and hightails it out of there as Phasma captures Finn and Rose and prepares to execute them. At the same time, Leia volunteers to remain behind on the decoy, but Holdo overrules her, remaining behind, and when the First Order starts firing on the evacuation shuttle, since DJ overheard Finn, Rose, and Poe discussing the evacuation, and told the First Order about it, Holdo discovers that Poe had entered in hyperspace coordinates into the computer during the mutiny, and comes upon an idea. She uses a little-known technique known as hyperspeed ramming, and slices the flagship in two and destroys much of its escorts in a valiant sacrifice. The ship's destruction allows Finn, Rose, and BB-8 to escape to rejoin the Resistance fleet and land at the base on Crate, as Kylo Ren, having taken command, plans to annihilate the base. All they've got are a bunch of old, out-of-date when they got it tech, but they're prepared to fight. Right when everything seems lost, though, Luke Skywalker arrives after a shower and shave, and prepares to stand against Kylo Ren. Luke apologizes for failing Ben, which Kylo doesn't accept, and says that the Resistance and the Jedi will become renewed through Rey. Kylo prepares to kill Luke and shoves his lightsaber through him. Except it's not really Luke. He's still on Ahch-To, but he's projecting himself with the Force in order to distract Kylo long enough for Leia and the Resistance to find the back door to the base and catch a ride with Rey and Chewie on the Falcon. Much like Leia's earlier use of the Force, it was a pretty big strain, and Luke lets go, giving himself up to the Force like old Ben Kenobi and Yoda did years earlier, while we're told that Rey saved the ancient Jedi texts before Yoda blew up the tree, and on Canto Bight we're shown that the Force and the Resistance will always live on in the children of the future. One of the reasons I like novelizations, and I'll be going into this a little bit more in a few weeks, is that visual mediums, especially films, have a certain limitation to them. That we're not allowed to really get into a character's head without there being clunky expositional voiceover.
And God help you if you use voiceover in your work, my friends.
Seriously, I can't not think of that scene when I think about voiceover. And while films find creative ways to impart that information without voiceover, especially through something as simple as just a look, you're never going to get the full, unabridged story unless it's written as prose. You're just not. And thanks to Jason Fry, we get that truly unabridged story without having anything that alters the story, save for specific dialogue not always matching up. I like that we go farther into Luke's head than we got in the movie. We know his real feelings, not just what Mark Hamill imparts through looks and movements. And there's a lot of inner thoughts from Rey while she's trying to figure him out that's far more enlightening. Speaking of Luke and Rey, a defining moment for Rey, absent in the film, is the third lesson that Luke promised. During the night, a commotion starts, and Luke tells Rey that it's an attacking force pillaging the caretaker village. Luke insists that if she stops them, they'll simply come back with stronger numbers, and Rey can't stay to protect them, but Rey immediately runs to help them, discovering that it's actually a podling party from the Dark Crystal. Or at least that's how I pictured it. The old Jedi, the ones trained by the Council, they'd have been like, well, if what we could do could make it worse for them, and debate endlessly just like the Jedi Council did. Rey just runs in. Luke tricked her, but it shows what type of person Rey is, and her arc with Kylo Ren, as Fry himself stated in a brilliant Twitter thread where he broke down the process of translating the movie into a novelization that I used heavily as research for this video, is read by many as romance because that's just the simplest analog we have. Their relationship is far more intimate than that, with them both having been inside each other's minds, Kylo Ren invading Rey's mind back in The Force Awakens, and Rey returning the favor and probing his mind here. Maybe it'll end in romance, although I friggin' hope not, but we'll have to see where the next movie takes it. I also like how Rey is full of so much hope. Hope that she can pull Ben back from the dark side like Luke did to Vader. She's wrong, and Kylo is unsalvageable, given that when he did have the opportunity to cut and run without Snoke, he stayed behind. But it's another defining moment for Rey, and it hits far differently since we know her exact thoughts. And it's like that with every character. We get more into Kylo Ren's mind, especially with how he remembers his parents talking about him behind closed doors as some kind of monster, and seeing being sent to the Jedi Academy as them getting rid of him because of their fears. And why did he hesitate firing on Leia? Not because he cared for his mother, but because he felt how much she, even after all he's done, still cares, still worries for him and wants him to come home. Yeah, Adam Driver imparted something like that with just a look, and it was a great look, but to read it is heart-wrenching. I also like that what insights we get into Leia, though it's not that many considering her reduced role, but insights nonetheless. Hell, even the insights into Hux serve to make him a little bit more interesting, and makes the scene where Poe trolls him doubly hilarious.
Hi, I'm holding for General Hux.
We also get far more backstory into Holdo, which serves to explain a very salient point. Holdo was right. If she told Poe the plan, it could have, and actually did, compromise their original plan. And you know how Poe is all angry and indignant about it not being what Leia would want, despite Leia leaving Holdo in command, and, as the book explains, having known Leia and served alongside her for years? He can be, and I choose to read him as, a metaphor for Star Wars fans who think they should be doing those grand dramatic gestures that Hux is so fond of. I mean, think about it. He's basically a Star Wars fan when you get down to the nitty-gritty. Poe is in his 30s, just the right age to have been alive when Star Wars was super popular, and he grew up on legends of Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, and Han Solo single-handedly saving the rebellion and destroying the Empire. He believes that he knows better than those left in charge after Leia is out of commission. Starting to sound familiar? What's our legal recourse if Rise of Skywalker sucks? Can we sue to buy the rights back from Disney? And you chuckleheads played right into their hand. The benefit to the novelization is that we get to see a little more of Poe's reaction to realizing he was wrong, though it never really approaches it in any great detail because we might see more of that come Rise of Skywalker, and the author obviously didn't know what they were going to do in the next movie. There's also a lot of good character moments that we didn't get in the movie. They actually mourn Han in the book. Yes, a funeral in the middle of an evacuation isn't really conducive, and Leia admits that, but it's good for morale to have Leia address it rather than keep it bottled. Han wasn't some nameless moon jockey, he's a legend in his own right. It also addresses the big thing that a lot of people hated, the fact that Snoke got killed off suddenly, unceremoniously, and seemingly without opening up to who he really was, really. The novelization approaches that problem by giving us Snoke's own inner monologues about how he wasn't supposed to be the next Palpatine. He was just the guy who was in the right place at the right time to take the faltering, falling Empire and rebrand it into the First Order. We also learn a little more about Rose and Paige that makes Paige's loss all the more gutting. I don't know about you, but I feel for every dead goody eye in any show. It's why I can't stand superhero media with heavy casualties, but I admit that most of why I felt for Paige in the movie was because of Rose. But here, she's a character in her own right, and since we really know their connection, it's a far more solid feeling of loss. The interplay between Finn and Rose is really good. One is a soldier out of obligation, one was a soldier out of being forced to be one and isn't keen to do it again. Rose sees beauty in the universe, but also knows the cost of a place like Canto Bight. Finn is seeing a lot of this for the first time with his eyes open. Rose is fighting for everyone in her sister's memory. Finn is fighting for Rey, the first person he met who was nice to him, who he cares about just as much as Rose cares about Paige. This also helps factor in the stuff with DJ, since neither of them want to trust him, but they're desperate and hope for his humanity to shine through. And the novelization takes what we saw and makes it far deeper and more concise. Anyone who thinks that their arc wasn't important to their characters, especially to Finn's arc, has no appreciation for the finer points of character development. And you're all forgetting what every Star Wars movie apart from the original has done, which is multiple narratives that don't entirely seem to mesh together. And for this comparison, I'm going to use everyone's favorite, The Empire Strikes Back. That ought to piss a lot of people off. Empire starts out on Hoth, where the rebels are forced out, then the plot splits with Luke going to train with Yoda, and the Falcon heading towards Bespin, then we have the Bespin in training, then Han is frozen, Luke goes to fight Vader, and movie ends. The Hoth stuff could be a totally different movie if it wasn't for Ben telling Luke to go to Dagobah. Hell, when I was a kid, I legitimately thought that Return of the Jedi was two separate movies because the Jabba's palace stuff and the Endor stuff were so utterly distinct that I thought that they couldn't possibly be part of the same film. And also because the first time I saw Return of the Jedi, I only saw the first half of it, and I didn't finish it till much later. Jason Fry not only truly understands the characters, but he truly understood the film, even if he admitted to not fully understanding all the arcs as he stated on Twitter. If there was one character that even Fry couldn't save, it was Phasma, who is just as pointless, but that's a problem that The Force Awakens had as well, so you can't really fault The Last Jedi for it. A problem with novelizations is that books can sometimes get too wordy and exposition-y, since the medium allows it, which makes it feel bloated. A lot of the Doctor Who novelizations have that problem. But this novelization doesn't have that issue at all. Everything feels basically the same pace as it did in the movie. There's also a few more breaks in the action. There's a really funny scene of Finn, Rose, and DJ running into an old stormtrooper colleague of Finn's, and Finn thinks that he's about to be outed, but thanks to the bureaucracy of the First Order, the colleague doesn't know that he defected and just congratulates Finn on the promotion to officer, since despite the traitor guy from The Force Awakens, it seems that most people are unaware of his turn, which does make sense. If other troopers knew that you could just defect, I imagine the First Order might lose their amazing employee retention rate. A thing with books versus movie are, and why most book-to-movie adaptations cut out a lot of stuff, is that movies have a built-in time commitment. You have to dedicate at least an hour and a half to a film. Meanwhile, a book is a commitment that can take 6 hours or 6 weeks, depending on how fast you read. But despite that, the book is a very cinematic feel, despite being practically double the length of the movie when you factor in how much more stuff is contained within. While I think that Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi was great, I think the novelization is even better. Any and all questions I might have had while watching, except for the question of whether or not Yoda was a puppet or CGI, puppet by the way, were answered. Motivations are clearer, and we spend more time within the characters. Between simply retelling what we saw on screen and expanding on it, the story becomes far more than it could have been on screen, simply by the virtue of having time to play around and develop what the movie couldn't hope to do in 3 hours, and in doing so turned an already good film into an even better novelization, retaining the message that there's hope in the future and the kids are all right. I really hope that they get Jason Fry to do the novelization of Rise of Skywalker and any other future films, because he's absolutely phenomenal at it. While this offering wasn't entirely holiday related, I hope you all have a happy whatever holiday you celebrate this time of year, because my actual Christmas video won't be out until after Christmas. Don't blame me, blame the calendar. I film on Thursdays, Christmas is on a Wednesday, and I wanted to do a Star Wars video. Next week, we take a look at an old VHS tape that I used to love watching around Christmas, featuring a certain purple dinosaur. Empire starts out on Hoth, where the